You know, there's this old stereotype about real estate agents. It doesn't matter if you're in New York, London, or Ho Chi Minh City. The stereotype is that they are, well, let's be polite and say, transactional.
Transactional is a very diplomatic way of putting it. You mean the idea that once the contract is signed and the commission is paid, they vanish into thin air?
Exactly. You become a ghost to them. But I've been looking into this case study from Vietnam, a company called Honeycomb House, and the data is frankly bizarre. They've been around for 17 years, moved over 55,000 clients, and the feedback loop doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense how?
Because people are writing rave reviews for transactions that didn't even happen.
Wait, hold on. They're reviewing a service they didn't buy?
Precisely. There's this story about a guy named Tommy. He spent time with an agent there, looked at options, but for whatever reason, maybe a friend offered a place he didn't rent through them. In a normal world, that's a dead lead. The agent moves on. But Tommy went online and wrote a 5-star review specifically because the agent, despite knowing the sale was lost, treated him with total professionalism right to the end.
That is interesting. It actually flips the traditional business model on its head. Usually, real estate is a hunter game. You kill what you eat. But this sounds more like farming?
That's a great analogy. It's farming relationships. And it seems to be the core of their survival in a chaotic market like Saigon. You have to remember, for an expat moving to Vietnam, the environment is thrilling but overwhelming. You don't just need a house, you need an anchor.
Right, because the stakes are higher. If I rent a bad apartment in my hometown, it's annoying. If I rent a bad apartment in a foreign country where I don't speak the language, it's a crisis.
Exactly. And that brings me to the pre-arrival phenomenon. I was reading about a client named Greg. He was communicating with an agent named Roxy weeks before he even set foot in Vietnam. By the time he landed, the psychological work was already done. He wasn't walking into a sales pitch, he was meeting a guide he already trusted.
That's the friction point, isn't it? The gap between anxiety and security. If an agency can bridge that gap before the client even packs their suitcase, the loyalty is cemented. But I'm curious about the after part. You mentioned earlier that most agents vanish. What happens when the air conditioner breaks or the landlord gets difficult?
That seems to be the real litmus test. There was a case with a tenant named Diego. He moved in and things went south. Issues with the property and a landlord who wasn't exactly keen on fixing them.
The classic nightmare scenario.
Right. Usually, the agent says, "Sorry, talk to the owner," and hangs up. But here, the general manager Sam personally stepped in. He acted as the shield between the tenant and the landlord, pushing until every single issue was resolved.
See, that's rare. That's operationalizing empathy. It's expensive to do that, you know? It costs time and energy to fight battles for a client who is already paid.
It is expensive in the short term. But think about the recommendation rate. They claim a 98% recommendation rate. You don't get that by saving time, you get that by spending it.
It reminds me of that concept of radical honesty. I noticed some feedback regarding agents named Dien and Tracy. The clients were shocked because these agents were pointing out the flaws in the houses.
Yes, the water pressure here is weak, or this street floods in October.
That is so counterintuitive. Sales 101 says you hide the defects.
But Trust 101 says you highlight them. If you tell me the bad news, I'll believe you when you tell me the good news. It's like a mechanic telling you, "Hey, don't fix this part, it's not worth your money. You're gonna go back to that mechanic forever."
It creates a sense of safety. And in a market like Ho Chi Minh City, specifically areas like Thao Dien, which are booming but chaotic, knowing the defaults, as the clients put it, is more valuable than knowing the perks. You can see the pool. You can't see the noisy construction site that starts at 6 a.m. next door. You need an insider to tell you that.
That's the key word, insider. It feels less like hiring a broker and more like having a local friend who knows where the bodies are buried.
So, Looking at this 17-year history starting back in 2009, that's a lifetime in a developing real estate market. Companies rise and fall every year.
It suggests that beyond transactions isn't just a marketing slogan, it's a survival strategy. They aren't selling square footage, they are selling the absence of stress.
Which is the one thing you can't put a price tag on when you're 5,000 miles from home.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own jobs, whatever industry we're in, are we just closing the deal? Or are we actually making sure the person is okay after they walk out the door?
That's the question. Because clearly, 55,000 people noticed the difference.
A thought to ponder. If you're ever in Saigon, it seems there's only one door to knock on.
And they'll probably tell you if the hinge squeaks before you even open it.
They probably would. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.